Let's take a look at all of the quantum stocks. Now, this is a particular sector that I'm quite interested in, and I think will be a pretty strong performer going into the future. However, all of the quantum names right now are in terrible bearish trends, and that is something that we have to point out and make very clear. So let's start with IONQ, the first of the quantum names. What can we say in terms of technical analysis here? Well, if we draw in a parallel channel, this looks to me like the kind of parallel channel that you would have had on the stock. Now, this is not a good sign that we could not hold these particular levels around $37.6 on IONQ. You did try to wick back up into this parallel channel and get an uptrend going once again, but sadly, you actually did instead break down. So that's the initial structure, a massive bullish trend, and now we are into a bearish one. If we were to draw in a parallel channel now, then the parallel channel I would be probably using here would be this kind of parallel channel. You've got the high here, the swing high, and again, price trying to break above this level, but once again rejected, and that explains the recent downwards price action on IONQ. Now, this is a scary looking channel. Of course, at some point it does become invalidated, because even at this point, it's not really possible to drop all the way down to these levels at the bottom end of the parallel channel. So what we can do here is we can actually adjust the parallel channel to the more recent swing low around $30 on IONQ, and that will give us a much more reasonable and likely price target for the stock going forward. So what are we looking at on that? Well, the low we can say would probably be somewhere around $11. If it were to happen in April, it might be higher if it were to come a bit sooner. But you're thinking, yeah, a pretty sizable 50+% move to the downside here, maybe as much as 60%, depending on when that move comes, to potentially tag the bottom of this parallel channel. As we often see, you get this kind of movement, and then perhaps you can head back a bit higher, but it might just be a higher low in the grand scheme of things. So I do sort of expect these kind of quantum stocks to be suffering quite a bit, especially if there is market turbulence in general, and indeed they have been selling off a lot. If we take a look, of course, at the indicator, then we'll be able to see that you had a buy signal, a massive bullish regime for a long period of time, and now a sell signal and a bearish regime. We would have to imagine this sends the stock quite considerably lower, since a lot of these names are very high beta, very high price to earnings and all the rest of it. So yeah, I would be expecting some more lows coming for IONQ. If we look at D-Wave, QBTS is the ticker. Another very similar story, massive buy regime, great price performance. You know, I mean, this is just an insane 4,500% gain if you were holding this stock all the way through since 2024. That's just insane. So we need to consolidate those kind of gains. People need to take profits, and that's going to put you in a bearish regime, sending this stock presumably again quite a bit lower. If we were to draw in a parallel channel to the downside on this particular stock, we'd be taking this low, connecting this one here, and we can draw it up to these sort of levels. And if we look at that, we might in fact be breaking down from this particular parallel channel right now. So we'll have to see if that confirms. If it does, it's going to be a very nasty look, and you're expecting quite a bit more downside. Potentially we could draw the parallel channel to be a bit more like this, and that might give you a little bit of a local low, but I expect you grind down lower on this particular chart, as with IONQ perhaps going, you know, as low as $10 and whatnot. Of course, these names are all rather correlated. If you wanted another potential downwards price target, you might be looking at as low as even $4 eventually on this particular stock. Of course, how low they can go is going to depend on a lot of conditions, market factors, as well as just how their business is performing. Okay, on to the next stock, Rigetti. Now, this is a stock I'm personally shorting because I think it is the weakest of the quantum stocks, aside from QUBT, which is the other stock I want to cover. But this particular one doesn't have very high short interest, so you don't risk having a major short squeeze, particularly at these levels. And I do expect further downside after the sell signal and the bearish regime here. So something like this to me looks like the parallel channel you're trading in on Rigetti. In the short term, perhaps we could go as low as $10 or so on Rigetti. Of course, there's upside targets of around $18, maybe $19 if you're very optimistic, but we have to favor the bearish view on this particular name as well. And lastly, QUBT, by far the smallest market cap and the most overvalued, I would say, in terms of the amount of money they're actually earning compared to the market cap of the company. Also put in a bearish trend, happened a lot sooner, so I'd be a bit more careful shorting this one. I think there's more risk of short squeezes now that you're a bit established in the downtrend. But again, just a really bearish look. This is probably the parallel channel I would be drawing in on QUBT. Of course, quite some more downside potential. If we were to go all the way to the bottom of the channel, it could be minus 40%. I do, to be honest, think you might get even more downside than that, particularly if it's a longer bear market for this particular stock. You might come back down to these kind of levels that we're trading at back in 2024, realistically. Not impossible by any means to come down to $1.5 or so on Quantum Computing Inc. That being said, I am long-term quite bullish on this sector. I do think quantum computing will be an interesting story in the future. We've got to get through this bearish period for these stocks. They've got to really, have a few months probably at least of downwards price action before we can consolidate, form a base, and hopefully get another nice bullish trend and perhaps a buy signal. I will alert you guys once I see those kind of signs on these kind of stocks, because the potential gains are absolutely massive. You just got to be careful not to get wiped out during the inevitable drawdowns that these stocks experience. With that being said, I hope this video was helpful. Of course, guys, subscribe as always for daily charts. Sunday macro report tomorrow. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.